I caught my wife did it with my best friend. She even had the nerve to send me Bible verses on forgiveness. In college, I met my wife, we'll call her Sue. We were both 18 years old at the time. We hit it off right away on our first date and were exchanging I love yous within weeks of dating. She kind of chased me, but I was delighted she did. We confided in one another about our darkest fears and secrets. And when her father died during her final year of college, I was there for her the whole time. Her father was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and while he was in the hospital, I'd spend the nights with her so she wasn't alone. We made it through, and it was at that moment in time that our friendship was deepened. She said she didn't know what she'd done if I hadn't been there for her. She referred to me as her soulmate. I knew I was going to marry this lady, and I asked her to marry me approximately 2 years after we graduated. At the time, things couldn't have been better for me. I had married the lady of my dreams, had a well-paying job right after graduation, and both of our families adored us. My closest buddy, let's call him Dave, and I had what I believed was an unshakable sibling tie. We'd known each other since 3rd grade, and he was the brother I didn't have. He was also married and had relocated with his wife after she found a nice position at a large legal company. His wife died in a vehicle accident about a year ago, which shattered him. He later returned to our hometown, but he was never the same. I tried to be there for him, but he refused to interact with anybody. No one could comprehend the anguish he was through, so I asked my wife if she could speak to him, since she had also lost a loved one and thought Dab may be able to communicate better with someone who had gone through something similar. Yes, I realize now that this was a major error. We'd give him visits on a daily basis. Even when I wasn't there, she'd spend hours at his apartment. They were going on walks together, watching movies without asking me, eating lunch, and doing other things that couples do. This was clearly much more engagement than I had meant for them to have, and it made me uncomfortable, but Dav was doing much better as a result of it. It's vital to note that Dav and Sue had never liked one another before to all of this. This is due to Sue's opinion of his being a jerk. Dave was jumping from relationship to relationship before to marrying his wife, and even after he married his dead wife, he cheated on her on a regular basis. As a consequence, Sue disliked him and questioned how I could be friends with someone who had such poor values. This contempt for Dav was also what blinded me to what was to come. As already said, Sue and Dav grew close, to the point where she'd invite him to events I'd planned for us as a couple. Furthermore, she began to exhibit traits of what I now recognize as standard cheater behavior. Constantly on her phone, becoming progressively aloof, little to no intimacy, and arriving home late. At this time, everything seemed fishy, and one day she was texting, so I questioned who she was talking to. She said it was one of her pals, and when I requested to see what they were talking, she grew agitated and accused me of being possessive. When I expressed my dissatisfaction with their relationship to Dave, he assured me that nothing was wrong and even accused me of not trusting him and my own wife. I was starting to feel gaslit. This carried on until Sue went out again one day. She stated she was going to her sister's for the weekend because she wanted some distance from me since my allegations were driving her insane. I was still dubious, so I contacted her sister to see whether she was expecting Sue to come over. She affirmed that she was, but Sue hadn't come yet. Keeping in mind that she had departed at 3 p.m. and her sister's house is around 4 hours distant from where we reside, it was now 10 o'clock. I went to my friend's home because something in the back of my mind prompted me to. My wife's automobile is, indeed, parked only a few steps away from my friend's home. At this time, it was obvious what was going on, and I hate to say it, but I sobbed. Hard. After a few moments, I decided to walk in and investigate whether this was indeed what was going on. I entered via the rear door, which I knew was open. I walked in silently, and I could hear my wife groaning. I was trembling. When I got to his bedroom door, I could see through the squeak. My wife knelt on his nightstand. That sight will never leave my mind. I'm actually weeping as I write this. When I pushed the door open, they both froze and stared at me. It took all in me not to beat the living daylights out of Dav. I just walked away into my vehicle. I could hear them scurrying and my wife yelled at me to halt so she could explain. I didn't want to see her. I'm not sure what I would have done, so I drove away. I wept the whole journey home, and they were both calling me. I went to see one of my college friends and have been here for about a week. I'm unable to eat, sleep, or think about anything else. I told my employer of the situation, and they were kind enough to provide me time off. I've been receiving phone calls from Dav and Sue, as well as our respective families. I texted my family to let them know I was okay and will be returning shortly, but I haven't answered to anybody else since. This is excruciating. That's terrible. I'm trying to stay tough, but my willpower is fraying. How could someone you cared about so much do this? I'm at a loss on what to do. How am I going to cope with this? I'm now considering hiring a divorce attorney to help me analyze my choices. My buddy suggested one he characterized as a shark. I told her everything, and she seemed really driven to help me get out of this as financially healthy as possible, given the circumstances. I still adore my wife, but I'm not sure I'll ever be able to get over this. I got a lot of messages from Dav as well, but I don't want to read them. I often alternate between sadness and wrath, and I'm at a loss for words right now. My family is well versed in everything. Sue, it seemed, admitted what she had done to everyone. I've been away from everyone for more than 2 weeks and I'm still at a loss on what to do. The agony is still palpable. When I shut my eyes, all I see is Sue and Dave together, and the agony doesn't seem to be going away. I know most of you are saying simply divorce, and I would agree, but things aren't that simple when you're the one in this predicament. Given all of this new information, I'd welcome any help, especially from those who have been here before. How do you get beyond your betrayed husbands and waywards? Is it even conceivable? Proper now, I'm pretty convinced that I'll forward with the divorce, but I just need reinforcement that I'm making the right choice. I looked over all of your comments and felt compelled to add this. She, as well as relatives and acquaintances, informed me that she had been living with her sister for the last several weeks. She mentioned in one of her letters that she had only talked to Dav once since I found out and went complete NC with him. Her mother sent me an apology for her daughter's actions. I didn't answer her phone calls. Sue, she added, is now undergoing individual counseling. In another email, she said that she would never leave me for Dav. She has emotions for him, but she is not in love with him. Huh? Dave is meant to leave shortly, but he is allegedly delaying his departure until he talks to me face to face. There's a lot more I haven't said, and I'm definitely leaving out certain specifics, but some of my family and friends think I should simply speak to her and move on. That's where I'm at right now, so I took a break from Reddit and other social media to concentrate on my marriage and next actions I would take. I was receiving a lot of advice from the wonderful individuals on this site, as well as from family and friends. However, I wasn't sure what I really want. Since then, a lot has transpired, so this might be a novel. Please bear with me. When I looked back on the marriage, I realized it was mostly packed with joyful memories, which is why I was trying so hard to find a reason to remain. However, when I thought about her adultery, how she and Dave gaslighted me and made me doubt my sanity, all I felt was wrath. The more I looked, the more enraged I became. I'll never forget how furious Sue would become when I questioned her about where she'd been when she returned home late, or the horrible look Dave gave me when I asked him, man to man, whether he and my wife were having an affair. The adultery was awful enough, but it was made worse by the fact that it was with my closest friend. But there's the gaslighting. Gaslighting by ducking. It's something I'll never get over. True, I was played like a fool, but it takes a particular sort of person to lie so readily and so brilliantly. I'm not sure how they were able to turn the switch so quickly. I recall her telling me how much she loved me and how orny she was while she was driving home thinking about me one night when she arrived home late, maybe 2 days before I found out. Because she wasn't wearing any panties, I'm fairly positive she'd returned from Dave's. She had sex with both of us at the same time. I kissed her while dodging. I felt like a wimp in this circumstance. How could I have allowed them to all over me like that? I'm completely emasculated. The more I thought about it, the more I wanted to go to Dave's, but I couldn't do it. There is no justice for me in our legal system. They get to torture me and emotionally assault me, but if I respond, I'm the one who gets locked up for who knows how long. I discussed this with my lawyer, who advised me not to do something dumb. I would not only go to prison, but I would also endanger my prospects in the divorce procedures. She advised I visit a therapist, but I'm not interested. I don't see the point. Sue's emails were continuously flooding my inbox, and they were just making me angrier. She was still spouting the same about how horrible her life would be if I didn't exist. She even had the audacity to email me forgiveness biblical texts. Why would I do that if I were so important? Stay tuned for the next part.